I am here on Facebook Live ready to answer your questions about the book of Job. It's been a great Sunday. Approximately 7.5 hours ago, we finished our Sunday service at the core and we finished our series on Job. So as promised, here is a question and answer time on Facebook Live. If you have a question, post in the comments. And if it's after the video is recorded, either Lieutenant Michael or myself will answer you. If you want to schedule a meeting to talk further about it, please message us and we'll schedule a time to talk. Let's go ahead and get a discussion going. I do have some questions here ahead of time that some core members gave at the end of service today for us to kind of jumpstart this conversation. So we can dive into those in a minute. I do want to just say something quick about Job just to kind of give an idea of the overall picture that we talked about over the last couple of weeks. And it is this. God is glorious. He's huge. He's great. And he sees all and he knows all and he has perfect wisdom. You see, I'm right now in the comfort of my apartment, which is awesome that I can talk to all of you and be right here. And so you have, though, right now a very limited view of my apartment, right? We have this blank wall, we have that window and that couch and those pillows and that blanket and that fire sprinkler, and this is hard to do mirror image, and I should have just done that. Anyway, point is, that's all you see. And if I look around, I can see that I actually have two bookcases here. Michael's PS4 is there, and a drawing that he did is there, and we have a guitar there, and I have some muffins I made over here, but you can't see those. And I know that the room next to this room, I know what it looks like in my mind, I just can't see it right now because there's a wall. I know there's a hallway outside. I don't know what the apartment on this side next to me looks like, though, because I've never been in it. But I can kind of guess maybe if it looks like mine. So the point is that we have very limited views. Even looking out that window, I can see the outside, but I can't see everything. And in the same way, when it comes to understanding this world and life and questions like why do bad things happen to good people, which is the main question that I think is wrestled with in Job, because Job was a really righteous guy. I mean, he loved God, great father, great businessman, great husband, wanted to do everything to honor God, and still had bad things happen to him allowed by God. So that's the big question. But when it comes to that question, we have to remember that we have a very small, finite view of God and of the world and of our lives and who our lives interact with and the world that we interact with. While God actually sees the full picture and not even just confined to time, he sees outside of time. So even he sees how things interact with each other in this moment, in the next moment, in the next moment, in the next moment. And so the point is that he sees the bigger picture. So his wisdom is greater. And also his justice then must be greater if his wisdom is greater. So when we don't understand why something's happening, we can rest knowing that God does. And his wisdom's good and perfect, and the world's spinning, the universe is happening, and he sees us, and he knows us, and he loves us, and he made us in his image, and he cares for us. So we can rest in that, even when we don't understand. A really hard topic. Really challenging. Job went through a huge struggle to get to that point. What's crazy in Job's story is that he started off with God and his wisdom taking away from him, and then he ended in God's wisdom, God giving him double what he had in the first place. So we don't understand God's wisdom, but he's got a purpose in everything. So anyway, that's like the overall message of Job. You can ask us, message us. It should be on Facebook somewhere anyway, the links to the sermons itself, so you could get the breakdown of that over the last 3 Sundays. Let's go ahead and go to some questions. So, I don't see any in the comments, so I have some here from the core. How long ago was Job? Okay, Job was probably like 4,000-ish years ago, 3,500-ish years ago. Long time ago. And we know this because in Genesis chapter 46, we actually see Job listed in Jacob's as one of Jacob's descendants. So that's pretty cool. And that puts us somewhere around like 1600 BC. Maybe a little bit older, like 17 or 18. So somewhere around there. That actually feeds into the next question, which is Job a true story? Yeah, Job is a true story. There's some hesitation and speculation. I'll explain that in a minute. But we know that this Bible's true, right? There's historical support, even from other religions. There's historical, other cultures other than the Jewish culture. There's histories written that support the history that's recorded here. There's some experiential support. I've experienced the God that is communicated here in the Bible. His nature is something that is communicated here, being loving and seeing us and so personal and ordering our steps. I've seen it in my own life, and I pray that you have too. The redemption of Jesus is Jesus' life and death and resurrection, historical and experiential. I am a changed person because of Jesus, and I hope that you are too, that you've let him change your life and change your view. So anyway, all that to say, long answer that this book is true. So we could say that about Job. We have historical support. One is being in a Hebrew document. We have Genesis, right? Genesis 46, where Job is listed. We have in Ezekiel chapter 14. Ezekiel was a prophet who was much later, about like 1,000-ish years after Job. And he references Job alongside Noah and Noah and Daniel. So, if Job was fictitious, he wouldn't list him with two other historical figures in faith. And he's referenced for his righteousness, and that's a characteristic we know about Job in this story. And then one of the best examples, excuse me, that I see that we see in the Bible is in James. In James chapter 5, James references Job not just as a righteous man, but also references the struggle that he went through. So one of the things I had tough time with Job personally was, well, Job went through all this stuff. Like, this seems like a Hollywood film. Like, this is too crazy to be real. But James actually references that Job went through some tremendous pain and persevered, and what an example of that endurance, and how God blessed him, and how God saw him, and he had faith, and just how beautiful that journey was, and what an example Job is for us. So yes, Job is historical. One little, the question is, because Job is written in a very artistic format. If you look at the Hebrew, if you know Hebrew poetry, you'd see that. I had to be told this. Reading commentary from Bible scholars that it's actually written in a pretty poetic form. So odds are Job's friends didn't speak in monologues to each other. They didn't rhyme. They didn't, they probably didn't say those things verbatim, but they definitely said them, as far as concept-wise. We're pretty sure that's a true account. Same thing with Hamilton, right? Hamilton, the musical, true story, but odds are Hamilton wasn't rapping in the middle of war. Just guessing. Okay, next question. What should I say when bad things happen to good people? Okay, we talked about this in our second week, that what to do, what not to do. We talked about how a good example from Job's friends was that they sat quietly with him and just mourned with him, and that's like one of the best things we can do. The ministry of presence. I don't know about you, but that's how I feel God minister to me sometimes. Is I sense His nearness. I know that He is with me, and so when I don't understand, when I don't have answers, I feel His nearness. Jesus shared in our sufferings, right? He's the suffering servant, so He knows what the pain is that we feel. And so in that same way, to come alongside a friend and just sit with them and mourn with them. A big thing not to do, though, is like Job's friends, after they sat and they mourned with him, is they tried to explain and rationalize what happened to him. And say that it was because he must have done some sort of sin or something happened. But Job was righteous, and we saw that in the beginning of the story. So anyway, the point is, don't try to explain why. And also don't try to defend God during it either. Like, let someone mourn. And that's the first step in their healing process. Okay, I don't see any questions in the comments. This is a real tough question that someone from the course shared. It's this: what about sin? Isn't sin a reason for bad things happening? Yes. Yes, sin is absolutely a reason for bad things happening. So in Job, the focus here is about God's wisdom. It actually doesn't give a full answer about sin and evil and handle the problem of evil, but the whole Bible does overall address this. It starts off in the beginning. We see that Adam and Eve sinned. They did something wrong by separating themselves from God. And so as a result, there's evil that's within humankind's heart. There's things that aren't okay that happen. We hear of shootings and human trafficking and just tragedy, murder that happens, and that's a result of sin. That's not part of God's plan. But even then, God is good and He's with us. And He's near to us and He sees us and He loves us. And that's why He sent Jesus, was to take on our punishment for our sins and to die and prove greater than the power of death and raise again, and is coming back again to establish His kingdom on earth. And that'll be the end to evil. We see in Revelation, it says that there's going to be no more tears, there's going to be no more suffering and mourning, and it's just going to be joy. And it's going to be the world as God intended it. So sin is a problem, absolutely. That's not a topic that's specifically addressed in Job. It wasn't a way addressed because this big word called retribution theology, the idea that when we sin, God punishes, that's addressed. But we see here that Job didn't sin, or I shouldn't say didn't sin, but he didn't turn against God. So this wasn't God punishing him. So the point in this story, this narrative, is to show God's wisdom overall. But yes, sin is absolutely a factor of the evil in the world. Okay, I don't see any other questions in the comments. I'm going to end with this last question, which is, what is your favorite verse in Job? This is what we're going to kind of end on, and I'm glad that question was asked because I have a verse that challenges me a lot, and I think is a good thing that kind of humbles us and sets us in place when we think about life. Job 38, verse 4. This is God talking to Job after Job is in anguish, and God says to him, "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding." I don't. And it's a beautiful thing. So my prayer is that we can rest in God's wisdom, we can trust Him, and that we can experience His nearness and His love and His compassion no matter what we go through. So again, post your questions in the comments. We'll address them as we see them. And love you guys, and have a good night. God bless.